When I change clay, the clay also changes me in some ways, so I feel like with hands, I'm able to pass a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts into the clay, no matter how tangible, and then that also comes back to me. It's kind of like a full cycle. I feel like just like most kids grew up in the 90s, in Macau, watching things like Journey to the West, kind of a lot of mythological creatures. So there's obviously a cultural familiarity to it, but also as I read more into it as an adult, they could be seen as queer beings. They defy categorization, and their existence in some way is kind of so rebellious to me. They are ungovernable, even in a self-destructive way. I've been working in clay for the last 10 years, and I'm self-taught in clay, so I actually approach the material like it's a sculptural material from the very beginning. I think the hands that are quite consistent in a lot of my work, it's actually maybe quite referential to the process itself. Sometimes I feel like using clay is such a reciprocal relationship. There's kind of a lot of lessons. So I feel like in a way, sometimes the hands look like they're offering something. Sometimes it's kind of destroying itself, kind of it's pulling a piece back out, but kind of frozen in the moment. A lot of the hands kind of suggest one of those modes. And I don't even use mold for any of my work. I think the slowness of it is an aspect that I appreciate about the medium. I feel like every touch is recorded and intentional because everything I put into the clay stays there. In the last 5 years or so, I've been rereading and researching on this very old Taoist text called Shanhaijing, or Classics on Mountains and Seas. In the beginning, I was kind of referencing very specific creatures in the text and kind of making installation by weaving that with some of my family history. I don't think grieving is necessarily only about grieving a death. It's also grieving about a time that is gone or will no longer come back, or grieving for a future that you thought was going to happen. This is the first time I will incorporate robotics into my work. This is actually the first time I'm making my own creatures, but kind of based on a lot of the kind of world building methodology that I've seen and I guess digest from reading this text so much. I spent my most formative years in Macau and then came here for college. And now, kind of having lived in New York for so many years, I mean, it's exploring intimacy. It's about homemaking in a foreign land. And it's nostalgia for one's home, but also reject this really easy, comfortable, belonging of homecoming that sometimes I think people who are exiled, whether you're voluntary or involuntary, you're kind of straddling both the good and the bad of both or multiple places. And at the same time, kind of a double estrangement. Because you're so aware of problems in both places that you kind of perpetually and in an outsider of both. So I think in some ways, even with making this work, for me, I've come in and out of both these roads. I've always want people to see my work by seeing all the different texture, all the different handmade, all the marks I put into it. There's some that like they respond to it, if not intellectually, maybe like emotionally, or lures them into like looking closer, kind of fluid relationship between what's handmade, machine-made. Think about like life and death not as like a polarity, but as a continuous. Because that's how I approach a medium, like emotional level, and then like the knowledge, like our other parts of the body, as much as the logical brings.